Welcome to this special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast. I'm Zach Semke, Director of Passive House Accelerator, and we're happy to be sharing a series of bonus episodes recorded in Hamilton, Ontario at the Passive House Canada Conference 2023. These interviews were conducted by Mary James, our Director of Publications, and Michael Ingui, our founder. A big thank you to Euroline Windows for underwriting this special series. Please enjoy.
This is Michael Ingui from the Passive House Accelerator at the Passive House Canada Conference. And we've got a really exciting interview. Give us your name.
Matthew Bowers, Matt Bowers, with Rochester Passive House Consulting. And I am a PHI certifier. I am a Passive House designer, and I'm also a certified tradesman. I'm also a trainer with the Passive House Network as well.
Yeah, this is going to be hard to get into.
Yeah.
This is going to be hard to get into.
It's
10 minutes.
A lot of letters after my name there.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll tell you, just because this is the first time we've met, even though I feel like I've known you forever now. This is the first time we met in person. But I mean, you do a lot of inspirational work. I think a lot of the teaching, tradesman stuff. I mean, just in so many different pieces of it. A, how do you find time for that? and B, are you working on anything really interesting?
Well, I appreciate that. Passive House is kind of a labor of love. I started my Passive House journey when I was in college. Right, I was going to RIT, learning about HVAC systems, and I wanted to design HVAC systems. And then I learned about this thing called Passive House and buildings so energy efficient they don't need furnaces. And so then I was like, well, why am I doing this, right? Why am I designing HVAC systems? So then I began my Passive House journey as getting certified as a tradesman and then a consultant. So back in 2018, I started my own company. 2016, I started my own company. And I've been doing Passive House consulting really ever since. And so that kind of brings us up to today. And so I started right in the single family realm of Passive House, and then we got a few small commercial projects. And now I'm working on the Passive House. I'm the Passive House designer for Blueprint Robotics' new manufacturing facility that's going to be in Windsor, Connecticut.
Yeah, I have to tell you, we've been hearing grumblings of a really cool project happening. I mean, what can you tell us about it?
It's big. It's over 6 acres large. And so just to, when I say 450,000 square feet, that kind of gets lost in the shuffle of just how big it is. When I say it's 6.5 acres big, that kind of puts it into perspective. We're working on certifying the office portion of it. And right now we're still in the early stages of bringing it to the Passive House Institute. We are trying to analyze all of the internal heat gains and process loads that the facility is going to have to see if the factory side of it is Passive House doable as well. So lots of fun conversations and calculating how much energy a saw uses and a laser pointer and all of the other really, really cool tools that they have. They've got electric-driven forklifts that we have to worry about, ventilation loads. So yeah, it's just overall, it's a really, really fun project to try to analyze. That
is really, really exciting. I'd say it's great that, they're in the Passive House world. They do great work already. And the fact that they're going to do this with the factory is... it's pretty incredible. It's
they're going 100% mass timber for everything.
Oh, that's even fun.
So they're bringing CLT panels in, and they're going to build the whole factory in CLT. The office is going to be CLT plus a little extra insulation, Passive House certified windows, Passive House certified ventilation system, all of that stuff. The Blueprint team is just really, really fun to work for because they know. Because they build lots of Passive House projects, they know the value in it. Yeah. So it's a different perspective to try to not have to worry about convincing your client that no, we need to stay on the Passive House path because they're already there.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. So why did they decide to go mass timber? What made some of those decision points important?
A lot of it comes down to embodied carbon compared to a steel building with foam insulation. And they're practicing what they preach. A lot of their projects utilize CLT for different shaftways and things like that. So to be able to utilize some of their current processes to help build this building it's really, really exciting. And like I said, they're a lot of fun to work with.
Cool, fun. So you're involved in so many aspects of the Passive House community in the world, and you're actually really pretty deep into projects at the same time. So what's cool about that is very often you'll get people who are kind of helping to run things, but they're not really in the trenches.
Right.
I mean, you're helping to do both, which is honestly great. What do you think the community needs? If you could click the back of your feet and all of a sudden we have some really good stuff. That's like 1,000 more laborers. But where do you see it going? And what are you interested in?
That's a great question. So I really got into the Passive House community, and I started doing excuse me. I started doing training with Passive House Network right before the pandemic hit. I really wanted to get into in-person trainings. And I think we've all come to the realization that in-person trainings have kind of gone out the window. It makes so much more sense to be able to just dedicate a few hours in your office and continue working and not have to take a week off. So I still do webinars, live webinars and things like that with Passive House Network. But I really like the education aspect of it. And it's kind of a catch-22. We need more designers. We need more tradesmen, but we also need more clients asking for Passive House. And, bringing it to the code bringing Passive House to the code level, I think is one thing, but having the people there to demand Passive House, the clients there demanding Passive House, I think is really what's going to take it to the next level, is just have that market presence that it's just being asked upon, because that's going to motivate builders to get certified as tradesmen, because they've got a client who wants to do this, right? It's going to motivate the architects who are doing the design work to get certified. And so all of those other things kind of fall in place when the demand skyrockets.
Tell me a little bit about BPAC. This is a cool announcement today. I was happy to be front row center when you guys described it.
Yep. So BPAC is an avenue for scaling up Passive House. And I really like the terminology that was used during the presentation today, how it's a library. It's not necessarily a new standard. It's a library of standards. And BPAC is really going to be focused on increasing the capacity to QA projects and get them through the pipeline to be credentialed or certified or whatever term you want to use. And so it's the transparency aspect of BPAC that's going to be really, really important, because coming from the energy modeling side, what do I use for my internal heat gains for this type of building? What do I use for occupancy? What do I use for my utilization period or ventilation rates or whatever the question comes when you're digging into the PHPP and you just really don't know what values to use. The transparency of BPAC being able to utilize a database of previous projects and what those assumptions are, and you have a starting place for your energy model so that you can continue the design process, that to me is going to be the most valuable aspect.
Yeah, especially for people who do repeatable work, or because not every house or building is the same.
Exactly.
But sometimes what you're doing is similar.
Right.
And starting from 20% or even 40%.
Right.
Is so much better than starting at zero, when between 0 and 20 and 40, you're really just doing the same thing over and over again.
Right, exactly.
You want to get to the good stuff.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
And so, different building types. We've got, aquatic centers that have been certified, hospitals that have been certified, fish hatcheries, whatever the building type is, we'll have access to that information to really help guide the designers for their projects.
RIT has come up a few times. And you graduated from it, and I should have known, given where you are. Are you still associated with the school? Do you still know anybody going to the school? How did RIT's I'm going to start again. Sorry. How did RIT's educational makeup help you kind of move towards where you want to go today?
That's a great question. And one that I really haven't shared, actually, with too many people. So I was in the Navy for 6 years. I was a nuclear engineer on an aircraft carrier. And when I got to college, I was 22 years old, right? I knew everything. I had traveled the world, right? And worked on an aircraft carrier. I had worked with all these pumps and valves and stuff. And what it really taught me was, one, their co-op requirement for graduation. I wanted to have my co-ops waived because I had worked in the Navy for 6 years. They wouldn't let me. And I didn't understand why until I had to look for a job, right? And that process of having a resume and submitting it and sitting in on an interview and learning how to talk to people professionally, all of those kinds of things were taught because of the co-op process. The co-op process also got me to where I am today because the company that I worked for my co-ops is the one who got me trained as a passive house designer. So all of those things within RIT, the co-op process and the faculty over there really helped inspire me to get to where I am today. That being said, Rochester does have a network of building science professionals that get together every 2 weeks. Right? And so we get together with some of the faculty at RITs. They invite some of the students who are in the architecture program or the engineering programs over there, and just, sit down and talk about projects that they're currently working on or different other aspects of their profession. Architects are invited, engineers and the students, and we'd all just kind of get together and just kind of keep everybody up to date on what cool stuff they might be working on.
All right, now you're speaking my language. Okay. Oh, okay. And by the way, I did not know that was one of the answers before I started this, but that is the exact thing I love to do.
Yeah.
Just because you get so much out of it, and everybody does.
Yeah.
And so many times we've gotten together with different people who are new to it, not new to it, young, old, and I walk out and I'm like, wow, I really need to be doing this detail that way.
Right.
Duh. Right. And that's really cool. I would love to hear more about that at some point as well.
Yeah.
So, before we end this, I think these are supposed to be short podcasts, and I could go on and on with you. Any thoughts you'd like to leave with?
Get a certifier involved as quick as you can. They're a wealth of knowledge, and don't. I guess the last thing would be, don't let a weird building typology keep you away from trying to make it a passive house. That's how we have passive house certified YMCAs and aquatic centers and car dealerships and all those other kind of cool different building types. If you're approached for a project that's a weird typology, don't say, let's learn how to do it and then the next one I'll do passive house. Try to make the first one a passive house and involve a certifier as quick as you can.
It's good advice. All right. So, Sydney, this was Matt Bowers, Rochester Passive House Consulting, and we're at Passive House Canada. It's a wrap. Thank you.
Awesome.